and welcome to the Josilyn Drake Show. I am your host, Josilyn Drake. We have a great show in store for you today. Failing schools are a trend across our nation. This will prove to be a challenge to our country's ability to maintain its greatness on a global scale. My guest today is here to share with us what he thinks are solutions to the problems of failing schools. Help me welcome to the Josilyn Drake Show, Dr. Douglas Ragland. Thanks so much, Dr. Ragland, for joining us today.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, of course, my name is Doug Ragland, and I'm a native of Birmingham. Certainly attended Birmingham Public Schools and grew up in Wylam. Was born in Fairfield at Lloyd Nolan Hospital that no longer exists, and grew up in Wylam and went to Wylam School as well as Inslee High School, and then I went to UAB and the University of Alabama where I got my doctorate. I'm married. I attend Upper Room Fellowship Church. My wife is the pastor. We have two locations in the Jefferson County area. So I'm a spiritual person, putting God first in my life and foremost, and certainly I'm motivated by God first, and like to try to be an encourager and helpful to everybody, because I served in education for 34 years.
Okay.
And I was in a variety of roles, from teacher to principal, superintendent, and so ran across a lot of people in different areas, 4 different school systems in the state of Alabama, and so I feel like I have impacted a lot of lives, and give God the glory for that. And so basically I'm just humble, down to earth, and just quote, a servant leader, and trying to be the best servant I can for God, and be the best husband for my wife, and just be a good example, an excellent example for the children and anybody who looks up to me.
That's awesome, Dr. Douglas.
Thank you.
What motivated you to go into public service?
Well, I looked at the school district, and the school system is pretty much where my service is, and I'm an educator, and I feel like if you're going to serve, you need to serve in that anointed gift that God has given you, and He's gifted me in education in terms of teaching and communicating and things of that nature. So I feel like I can make a difference in that area where I know how to serve and where I have experience and knowledge. And so I was basically motivated to run for office because I saw a need for our children to go to the next level. And in all the school systems I've served and the people I've worked with, I've always had high expectations. And I know Birmingham can get to that level where our children can be prepared to succeed globally. And I have those expectations. Our superintendent does as well. And I just want to put my stamp on things by running for office and seeing how I can be a part of making this work, knowing I can't do it by myself, but at the same time working collaboratively with people who think like I think and who are experts in the area. We can make a difference in the lives of the children, and that's what we're here for.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
So you are a Birmingham counselor on the board. Tell me exactly what are some other districts that you've actually impacted during your career?
That's a good question. I started with Birmingham City, and I've worked in Birmingham City for a total of 18 years. And then I went on to Eufaula City Schools, which is in Southeast Alabama, and I was the principal there. Okay. And of course, I worked in Greene County, Utah, Alabama, as superintendent for 3 years. And then I came back and I retired here in Jefferson County at Midfield, and I was superintendent at Midfield for 3 years. So you can see 4 different school systems, basically Birmingham City, Greene County, Midfield City, and Eufaula City. So 3 city school systems, 1 county school system, and all different demographics. Birmingham very large, Greene County very rural. Eufaula the oldest system in the state of Alabama, but very affluent in some aspects as well. And Midfield, very small, quaint district as well.
Okay. Well, do you think your experience across the board with these different school districts have helped you, or has it been a challenge?
The experience has helped because sitting on the school board as I do now, a lot of things come across the table where I'm very familiar with, and I don't have to, quote, learn the job. And in talking with our superintendent, I can help her out on some things as well, because she's new, and she values my experience in that role. It's nothing like being in a situation where your boss is someone who has actually walked in your shoes, and I've done that, and she looks to me to give her some guidance on that, and I've done that.
Awesome. So, help us understand what the role is of a school board member.
That's a very good question. The role of a school board member is basically to establish policy for the district. And of course, we have responsibilities of obviously hiring the superintendent and hiring the counsel or the attorney for the school board as well, and the chief financial officer. Those three, I guess the personnel in that respect falls directly under our guidance. And but our responsibility is to make sure we have the policies in every aspect for the district, academically, discipline-wise, whatever. We approve everything to make sure that our children are getting the best, and to make responsible decisions. The superintendent recommends, and the school board finalizes everything. And so we have to make sure that we understand what's coming to us, so that we make responsible decisions, because in the end, we're the final decision maker.
Okay. Well, what do you wish that you had known before going into this office?
Well, in thinking about that question, I don't know if there's nothing I didn't really know already, because I've been in education for so many years.
Okay.
But if I had to pick something, politics, that's different. The political spectrum is something you have to get used to. Even though I saw it at the superintendent's level, but it's sort of different at the board level. But just knowing that you have to keep politics out of decision making is the key. And sometimes you can sort of get influenced by people, or decisions are made based on things that are not in the best interest of children. But we got to stay away from that. So I'm fighting politics, and I'm trying to bring the spiritual component to the school board, and working, knowing that God is going to lead us, and we need to make sure that if we make our decisions based on God and the spiritual component, then we're going to be successful, instead of making it on the natural or political aspects of it.
Okay. You know, politics is always the chasm that keeps us from really making the right decisions, helping us to move forward. That's school board, at the White House, it just doesn't matter, Senate or Congress. So what would you say to those who are in these service positions, and the citizens are really looking to them to make sure that they make the right decisions and policies for their lives, not for political gain? Right.
What I would say is, we need more spiritual leaders in these kinds of positions to do things the godly way. I do the invocation at the school board every single board meeting. I guess they just kind of anointed me to do that. I did it the first time Dr. Heron asked me, and ever since I've been doing it.
Okay.
So I use that stage to express working together, express doing what's best, making decisions, using God's wisdom, so that we can make decisions that are in the best interest of our children, keeping the politics out, working collaboratively, working together, working in love and harmony, but holding people accountable at the same time.
Right.
So I think you have to be yourself, and hopefully if you're a spiritual person in that position, you will do the right thing and not get caught up in scandals or get caught up in doing things that's going to lead to ugly situations for you and your family. So I think it's important to be in the spiritual component, having God lead you, because He's not going to lead you wrong. And I think when you do that, you stay away from the personal gain and things of that nature. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in simply making sure that our children get the best education possible, and that I play a role in making sure we bring the resources there to get that done. And I know God will take care of me. I just want to take care of what He has provided me in terms of my responsibility to serve.
Well, it sounds like we need more people like you all over the nation.
Thank you.
We're excited about having you here. We're going to take Coming up on our segment of Dear Younger Me, hear what Dr. Ragland has to say to the young Douglas on the Josilyn Drake Show. We'll be right back.
This segment of the show is entitled Dear Younger Me. It is our hope that this portion of the show will encourage someone that may feel they can't make it out of where they are. So we're going to ask you this question with the belief that something you say will encourage, inspire, motivate, or help someone else to win. What would you say to your younger you that may have been discouraged, worried, ashamed, afraid, hopeless, or angry? And how old is the young Douglas?
Well, the younger you, I would say, certainly be encouraged by keeping God first and foremost in your life. Believe that you can accomplish anything. Stay focused and know that you're going to have ups and downs, but at the same time, your destiny is in the good Lord's hands. And success comes to those who believe not only in God, but in believe in themselves from the standpoint of being confident and knowing that you be persistent, patient, and never give up.
Welcome back. This is the Josilyn Drake Show. So what do you hope to accomplish in this role as a board member?
Good question. What we hope to accomplish, what I hope to accomplish, is to work collaboratively with my fellow school board members and to work with the superintendent and to get the Birmingham City School System to a level of national prominence where our children can be prepared to go anywhere and be successful. That's the key component right there. And ultimately, as you well know, having an excellent school system feeds into having an excellent community, and it's just all tied into one. And so the better our schools are, the better our community will be, and the more resources we will have as a result in terms of jobs and economic development and things of that nature. So we want to make sure our children are ready and prepared, and that when they leave the district, they can be successful and live productive lives.
Awesome. So the trend of failing schools is not just in the city of Birmingham, it is across the nation. What do you think are some solutions to take school systems from 0 to 100?
That's a very good question, and I think the key aspect of successful schools, if you look at the research and all of the research that's been done over years, it comes down to parental involvement in the schools. And I was at a parent engagement meeting conference yesterday and had a chance to speak to some parents and wanted to motivate them and let them know how important their roles are in terms of being involved in schools and helping us out. Now, on the other side of that, we need to make sure we have the most competent personnel in these schools and in the school district, period. Certainly, when you have excellent teachers, it starts at home, and then you get to the classroom, we can reinforce what's taught at home, but you're going to have our children coming to school ready to learn. So pre-K programs, along with strong parental involvement, strong competent personnel, and excellent leadership at the level where I am to make sure that we are providing the best resources for our children will elevate us to the point where we can have successful schools and less failing schools. Failing schools in the state of Alabama are looked upon in three categories. First of all, you look at chronic absenteeism. They have to be in school. Then you look at the growth that they have from year to year, which is going to determine that's based on the teachers knowing the demographics, knowing where the curriculum is, articulation of the curriculum, and making sure that when the children get to each grade level, they are ready. And you don't want to have a child that's at the third grade level and cannot read. So these are things that are important. And then you have to make sure you have our children scoring in the highest levels possible, because in Alabama, they score them level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. And if you're scoring in levels 1 and 2, you're not meeting standards. If you're in 3 and 4, you're either meeting or exceeding standards.
Up next, Dr. Ragland has some wise words for us on today's segment of Wisdom Speak. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss it.
This segment of the show is entitled Wisdom Speaks. Wisdom is the ability to apply what you know. What wisdom have you learned along the way that you think will benefit our audience?
It's an excellent question. and I've learned to listen. In attaining wisdom, you have to listen and you learn from other people. And certainly, you have to realize that you have to be humble. And when you are listening and when you're humble, the good Lord will elevate you to the level where you can be. So getting an education is very important. Staying focused on that. And probably the most important aspect of that is be careful. And I stress this, be careful whom you associate with, because those individuals that you associate with will have a determination on how you perform and how you behave. And if you are with people who are going places and have high expectations and think highly of themselves, then you will fall in the same mode. And if you think of people who are doing the opposite, then you will fall in that mode too. So associate with good people, good spiritual and good people who are professional and want to go high places.
We're back, and thanks for tuning in to our interview with Dr. Douglas Ray. Some key points, I think, when you mentioned competent employees as well as parental participation. I can remember when I was in school, we had some great teachers who really invested in us. They told us how great we were. They expected excellence from us. We just didn't really know that where we were living was considered like not so good of a school district or not so good of a side of town because of our village. But today it seems like the teachers are really on a different level. I don't know if they necessarily care for the kids, or I'm not sure if it's just overworked and not having enough resources. What do you think that it is as far as competence and care? And I think there's a saying that people don't want to know how much you know until they know how much you care. So do you think that that's a part of really the teachers being successful in reaching the students? Because first of all, they need to know that you at least care about me before you try to tell me what ABC and what 3 times 2 is.
Excellent points. Excellent. Yes, ma'am, I agree. Culture is important. You have to understand your culture. It starts with the selection process of personnel and teachers. I used to recruit teachers.
Okay.
And I can tell you right now, when I went out there to recruit, I knew who wanted to be with Birmingham and who didn't. And so you have to get the right fit in the schools. And as a school principal, along with being a superintendent, that was a strong point of mine. I give God the glory for that. I was able to find the right fit for my school or my district. And it's important that you have the best qualified people. But if you have the best qualified people and they don't want to be there, then it's going to reflect in terms of low achievement, discipline problems because they can't control children, and then there's a frustration level there that's going to be second to none. So you have to make sure that you have people that are really in love with, first of all, their profession, teaching, and where they're working, and tout high expectations. You have to do that because, it was interesting you brought that point up because we had a school board meeting on Tuesday and had a parent come there and say, people need to know that we can't say just because children come from low socioeconomic backgrounds or if they're poor or whatever the case may be that they can't learn or they're not successful. And I agree with that 100% because when I was growing up, just like you, I may have been in an environment that was poor. I wasn't told that. I didn't know that. I mean, my parents took care of me. So even though I was living in Wylam, I didn't know it was different from Wylam and Mountain Brook. I know I excelled in that environment because of the culture, because of my parents caring for me and teachers caring for me. So to answer that question, we have some personnel in the district and everywhere that think like that. We just got to weed them out. And I think that's the job of us to start on the front end, and then if we have them there on the back end, then we're just going to have to do what we have to do to weed them out.
Okay. It seems like you really have some good skills that this Birmingham City needs. How would you go about maybe saying I will help to train some people with the things that are in you that you've experienced and how you see and view personnel and what a superintendent should exhibit? I mean, how could you get that message across, and how would you be able to train some people in the ranks to come up and really take those positions on so that the school system can become what it needs to become?
I think it's very important, since you asked a question earlier about who we're responsible for in terms of our role as board members, and the superintendent is the key person. We have to make sure we have a superintendent that understands what it takes to get us to the next level in terms of personnel selection, in terms of how we go about with academic achievement and things of that nature. And I think that from my perspective as a school board member, I need to impress upon her, or whomever the superintendent is, what's expected and what we need to do to get to that level so that we don't have these problems. It's very, very important that we communicate at school board meetings with parents. I go to my neighborhood association meetings. I go to different meetings at the schools, and I'm interacting with children and teachers a lot in these schools. And I just want to make sure that the leaders in the district understand what's necessary from that perspective. I told Dr. Herron the other day, we were meeting and so forth, that I want her to get the best people around her.
Tune in next week to the Josilyn Drake Show. You don't want to miss it. But right now, listen to Dr. Ragland spill some tea on today's Inquiring Minds Want to Know. We'll be right back to conclude our interview with Dr. Ragland.
This segment of the show is entitled Inquiring Minds Want to Know. How is it having your wife as your pastor?
Having my wife as my pastor is a blessing. Certainly having a spiritual woman to keep you on course, to encourage you, to share the Word of God in terms of making sure that both of you are on the same page, being equally yoked, so to speak, and being supportive of me in every aspect. She loves me, I love her, and I know that any person that loves God will love anyone else. And it's a challenge being a pastor's spouse, because in the church you have to cover a lot of angles, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, because she truly is a blessing. Thank you for that question.
Welcome back. This is the Josilyn Drake Show. So, Dr. Ragland, schools in large cities with substantial portions of poor and minority students make up most of the failing schools. Can you tell me why this is the case?
Well, failing schools occur as a result of tracking achievement being unsuccessful, number one. Failing schools occur when you don't have the appropriate evaluation system in place to provide the professional development for your children that needs to take place. If you have small classrooms, if you have the individual attention, if you have strong parental involvement, your schools are not going to fail. I think in many cases, the common denominator of failing schools will start with lack of competent personnel, lack of parental involvement, lack of motivation and interest amongst the culture that we're talking about. Everybody doesn't want to work in a large urban school system or a rural school system or whatever the case may be, but everybody can't work in the suburbs either. And so we're going to have the people with the right fit to work in those areas. In the meantime, you're going to have people who are competent and dedicated, who can weed out those individuals who are not performing up to levels where our children can be successful. Now, it wasn't a large school system, but I've worked in an area that was poverty, low socioeconomic, in terms of working in the Black Belt. I was superintendent in Greene County for 3 years there, and you don't get any poorer than that. Mm-hmm. But when I went there, not only did we not have finances that were up to par, it was understate intervention, and we didn't have any schools accredited when I went there, and the academic achievement was low. But when I left there, all that was turned around. So it shows you it can be done if you get the right people in place and the right leadership, so that children would benefit ultimately.
So that was great. So basically what you're saying, poverty has absolutely nothing to do with whether a child can achieve. It's really the parents having competent employees who care and putting the right policies in place.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, that's great news.
Absolutely.
It's exciting because it gives hope. Now, what would you say to the parents who just seem to think that because I send them to school, it's the teachers and it's the school system's responsibility to teach my child. I have nothing to do with it. You know, when they come home, then that's when I take charge, or that's when I step in. So how would you motivate parents to really get involved and help them understand that their participation is very important to make sure that their child is exceeding?
Excellent question. And you have to continue to stress that point to let parents know. Just like I mentioned to you earlier, I went to a meeting yesterday with, it was just hands full of parents out there, just so crowded. Couldn't find a parking place when I got there. And that was an opportunity to express to them how important you are. It's bad to say this, but if teachers or educators, in some instances, not everywhere, if they know you're not involved in your child's education, then your child may not get the most attention from them. Mm-hmm. But if they know you're going to be there and they can count on you, you're going to have that focus at the school level as well as you doing your part at home. So I think it's important to just harp. It's very important that we start with parents being engaged in schools, make them feel welcome when they come there, invite them to all these opportunities, teach them as well, because you don't just become a parent and know everything, you have to learn. And so basically we need to be involved in getting them to the schools and making sure that we make parents feel welcome and get them to understand your role is just as significant as the administrator, as the teacher, as the superintendent. You're sending your best to us, mm-hmm. and we treasure that, and we're going to do our best at school, but it cannot be unilateral, just at school and not at home. And when they go home, they need to know that they're going home to parents who are going to reinforce what we say at school and vice versa. So I think it's important that we stress that in community meetings, mm-hmm. PTA meetings, at the school setting, and just provide opportunities for our parents to let them know we care, and we need you there.
As I mentioned earlier, the trend of failing schools is really across the nation.
Yes.
So how can a nation that doesn't necessarily feel the importance to make sure that all of their citizens are educated in an excellent manner, how can they consider continuing to compete on a global scale if you have subpar children graduating from school?
Right. You can't. There's no way you're going to be competitive with the your countries globally when you have students who go to school in some instances 240 days a year round. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there's a stat out there, and I think it's India have more gifted children than America has children in schools. And so when you have children that are getting the best in other areas, other countries, and even in our country in certain areas, you have to realize that in order for our children to be at a competitive level, we have got to give 100% funding and 100% focus to our schools, no matter where they are, and to have the mindset that we can continue to be successful and just put partial involvement or engagement in the process is going to always lead us to being behind, like we are now in many instances, in terms of our children scoring at the math level and the reading level. We have children right now who are mastering in high schools who are not mastering reading and math. And it's at a percentage rate where maybe you have 80 to 90% of children not mastering that. Ultimately, that's going to come back to bite us. Mm-hmm. So you have to focus on the interests. We got academics, we got career tech, we have to know where our interest levels are for our children, and we have to meet their needs there too. Everybody's not going to go to college. Mm-hmm. We understand that. Mm-hmm. But you're going to have the military, you're going to have career tech, you're going to have academics, you're going to have various plans and purposes for your children when they come to schools. That's what we do in Alabama. We have a plan for them. Mm-hmm. And wherever their interests are, we develop that curriculum and scope around that to make sure that when they leave, they are ready.
Okay. Well, Dr. Ragland, thank you so much for coming to the Josilyn Drake Show. We really appreciate you taking the time out. It has been a pleasure.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Ms. Drake, for having me. And again, you're a wonderful interviewer.
Thanks for watching. The Josilyn Drake Show never stops. The conversation continues on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us, like us, and be a part of the conversation. Also, tune in on Thursdays at 5 p.m. to XL Radio and listen to the Josilyn Drake Radio Show. Until next time, enjoy life. See you next week on the Josilyn Drake Show. Get Josilyn's new single from her upcoming sophomore album, In This Place, on iTunes and all digital outlets. Log on to jocelyndrake.com and get your Dear Younger Me apparel.